This will work.
It's fine.
Okay.
It's close enough.
We got this one. Okay. So,
Introduce yourself, Ella. Go
Okay.
for it.
welcome everybody. It's Tiger News, and today we have a very special guest,
Yeah.
Miss Ray. You know us, Ela Stark.
Landon Roland.
Reece Cook.
Thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you for having me. What a
Of
wonderful
course.
experience, and I'm happy to be here and help you guys out. I
Yeah.
hope
Of course.
give you something decent to use.
Well, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us more about who you are.
Sure. My name is Tara Ray, and I teach English here at Ozark. I've been here, this is my 12th year. My 23rd or 4th, I can't remember, total years of teaching. And I was born and raised around here. Went away for some different things throughout my career, but then came back about 12 years ago. So
Yeah. Well, we love you. We love having you.
Yes.
and back at you, representing
Yes.
our girl
Rambling.
Reece here.
Rambling.
Yeah.
Well, we were wondering some things about your life before you came to Ozark. So, what college did you go to?
I went to College of the Ozarks and played basketball there. That's sort of a legacy thing. My sister and brother had both gone there, and anyway, that worked out. And then I got my master's degree from Middlebury University, but it's a program called the Breadloaf School of English. They have lots of language schools, but this one, it's based in Vermont, but you get to travel and study at different universities.
That's cool.
So I spent 2 years in New Mexico out there, and then you have to do one summer in Vermont, and then I did a summer at Oxford.
Oh, wow.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Was
it was
C of
neat. It
O
was
always your
great.
first option?
No. No, it was not. But it worked out. I mean, you go there, you work, and you owe nothing.
That's
So
true.
Yeah.
by the time you exit and graduate, you have no student debt whatsoever.
Yeah.
So
That's good.
that worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Not sure I'd make the same decision again, but in the end, it all worked out.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'd have ended up where I took my master's degree, and that was probably the best educational experience of my life. Like it was amazing, and I only had that because of a professor I had that steered me in that direction and let me know about the program. And,
At C of O?
yeah. So
well,
things work
Yeah,
out.
they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we knew teaching wasn't, well, we know teaching
Yeah.
is not your first profession.
It wasn't my first major.
Okay.
It was my first profession.
Oh, okay.
And then so I wanted to do graphic design, graphic arts, commercial art, things
Oh,
like
wow.
that. Yeah. And then I just had awesome professors that I kept wanting to be around. And really, I mean, if they say what you want to be at 4, you should pay attention to. And at 4, I was forcing neighbor kids to be my students. So I was always pretending to be a teacher. And so I kind of found, back on that path. And I come from a family of teachers. It was partly why I swore I wouldn't be one.
Yeah.
So it's-
You just, but then there's that appeal.
Yeah.
And it's a great career in many, many ways. It is a wonderful, wonderful way to spend your life.
Yeah.
Not always easy and not well compensated, but there are other things to consider about it. So I think I ended up in the right place. But that's not where I started. I did spend 8 years in another career.
Okay.
They talk about in education a 7-year itch, and that is a very real thing.
Well, I haven't heard that. What is that?
Just 7 years in one place, and you get where you're like, I need something else. I need to do something else. I don't know that it's just education, but for me, it's been almost on the mark. Like every 7 years, I get very antsy.
Yeah.
This is the longest I've been in one place ever, my entire life.
Wow. Yeah. 12 years is a long time.
Yeah, and it's pretty much true to the 7 for me that I have to move, go somewhere else, another state, another place, another thing. But no, for a while, when my kids were small, I worked in pharmaceuticals. I just did a completely different thing. I say completely. There was a fair piece of teaching in that career as well. But
Yeah.
I love biology. I liked the information. I liked that part of the job. I'm not too keen on sales, which is really in the end what it was. And not my favorite thing.
Yeah. How many years did you do that?
8 years.
8 years?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, enough.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah.
So why Ozark? How have you been here for 12 years?
Well, as my parents got older, I wanted to be closer. And so I just applied all around the Springfield area. And this was the one that gave me the call. So
Yeah.
It's meant to be.
yeah. Boo on Nixa. They didn't hire me. Their loss.
They're bad. Boo Nixa, we don't like them.
Yeah. Yeah.
What other colleges did you get into, or did you apply to any other ones when?
I did. Yeah, some other ones.
Some other ones.
No, I mean, this is probably where kids would be like, "Are you insane?" But no, I got recruited to almost all the Ivies for basketball.
Oh wow!
And they're not very good. Like, I mean, they're not good teams.
Yeah.
Like, it's not why you go. You know?
Yeah.
So Brown and Cornell and Columbia. The one I most considered and took a visit to was Columbia in New York City.
Yeah.
Should have done that, but didn't.
It's okay. Well, like you said,
Yeah,
things
it
worked out.
Worked out. It still would have cost me enough.
Yeah.
That I was kind of nervous, but I mean, it was a ridiculous offer that I didn't take.
Yeah.
But anyway, it worked out. Yeah. I would have been in classes with maybe like Julia Stiles, if you're talking about actresses, and like that era, they all were there.
Oh wow.
Amanda Peet. Went to Columbia about that time in the 90s. Yeah. So I always think about who I would have met. Who would have been in class with.
Best friends someday.
But anyway, it all works out.
Yeah.
So,
That's good.
Yeah.
What has we talked about your career already, what it's looked like thus far. So, and we also already asked that question. So,
But I do have a question.
Oh,
why AP Lit and Ling?
Well, it's kind of funny. My first job, I was in this, it's not here. Okay. So, my second job, this would have been my second job, but I got hired at a school where the department head, she had, like a cabinet with millions of copies that she'd already made for like years in advance, and it was very bizarre. But the teacher who was teaching all the advanced courses left, and normally that would go to the department head or the senior, who's the next senior teacher. And she didn't want it because she had all those copies made in advance, which just makes me laugh, but anyway, she did not want to deviate from her, sort of path that she had. And so I was probably 23.
Oh, wow.
And teaching the advanced classes at the school, which is really unusual.
Yeah.
But it was the most wonderful and awful thing at the same time. It was sort of a baptism by fire, but I was also working on my master's already, and I had so much freedom. I had just the best administrators at that time, and they were so hands off but very supportive and kind of old school, but they knew what they didn't know and didn't try to overstep. And I just got to experiment with all kinds of texts and methods, and I mean, I worked those kids so hard. Oh my gosh. Like, if you think now, it was even more. And I made a ton of mistakes, I'm sure, and didn't do things very well, but what a great 6 years. Like, I had about 6 years to do that, and I just learned so much, and I just would just kind of fell into that, but it was probably the first AP classes I taught. I mean, I was only 5 years older than the students.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So, but gosh, I had some just tremendously smart, and they pushed me so much to I could not go into class not prepared. they were going to ask me hard questions.
Yeah.
And what a great thing, because, I just felt like I kept getting better, and we had great interactions, and like I said, I don't think I was great, but I was allowed to get better, and the kids were kind of right there, a big part of that. So those students were, I think we had, like, in that one class, I had 8 Missouri scholars. Like, they were very, very sharp kids, and just, we read and read and read and read and read. And it was just a great experience. Yeah. And also, I got to have students there from, like, 9th grade all the way through. So it was a school about the size of Stratford.
Okay.
And so, and that was just awesome, to be able to just, like, once some kids took me, they would take every single class. And what a great, cool thing that was. And then some of them were my players. I coached at that time, and so had that extra sort of relationship, a different kind of relationship. And anyway, had a really good 2 through, like, 8 years. Were probably really some of the best of my career. I didn't realize it at the time. You never do. But, anyway, that's kind of how. And then, of course, I don't know. Whatever is the best at the school, I want. I mean, I want the top classes. I want the best students. I want the hardest thing. I want the whatever you put in front of me. That's what I'm gonna. That's what I want. That's what I want to pick for.
Yeah.
That being said, I'm a big believer that you should never only have those classes. I think the work should be shared, but more importantly, I think every kid, no matter what, deserves a really good teacher.
Yes.
So I never want to only have those classes. You know? So I always try to make sure I am teaching something else. That is more open.
Right.
Because I really believe that. I think all kids need really good teachers, and so you shouldn't just be shut off somewhere only having AP classes. It's not good for you as the teacher, and it's not good for the school. I don't think either. I think it's, I agree. So anyway,
well, I love that you teach English, because going into Ozark until last year, junior year, I'd never really been taught English. I've been taught to throw words on a page, I feel like. And so, like, having that, I feel like it's something that at least everyone should take once. Even though it's hard. Even though there are a lot of tears involved.
Really? Tears?
A little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Just managing all the things.
Yeah.
Especially
Learning
because,
to manage it. Yeah.
Because we're not held accountable most of the time here. And so you're kind of able to be like, oh, it's fine.
Yeah.
But being, like, pushing those deadlines, knowing how to get your work done, I feel like it's something that everyone needs to have at least once.
Yeah.
Even if it is in just your decades class, having someone that, like, holds you accountable and is on the full 100 minutes.
Yeah.
Because I feel like even a lot of those kids have never had a teacher that's on from start to finish.
Yeah.
I would not disagree with that. I can see it in their faces sometimes.
They're looking at you like, and their eyes start to glaze over. And pay attention, you're almost done.
I
try to avoid the glazing over. I try to keep it interesting.
Normally it is interesting. I don't know how that happens.
Yeah.
Because I'm over here, like, completely in it, and they're over here, like...
Well, you're just tired. It's the end of the day.
And they're not used to it. Like, I really feel like they're allowed to check out in most classes.
Yeah.
And I'm over here, like... We're like, this is interesting. How Hitler came to power is actually really kind of interesting, because I didn't know he got voted in. I just thought he came in and was like, okay, I'm in charge now. I like documentaries. Apparently not everybody does.
So good.
I love documentaries. I kind of wish I would have taken decades, but
it's a fun
didn't
one.
fit.
It is a fun one.
It's a good one.
But
it is a good
Well, thank you for saying that. About the way I run the class.
Absolutely. It's nice.
I was gonna say, AP Lang, I think we've talked about this before. AP Lang was really big developmentally for me. Because I have struggled with managing time and schoolwork and yada yada. And AP Lang did really push me to, like, get this on time. And now AP Lit, it feels so much easier. I feel like we don't get assigned as much, but it's still like, you just, it just feels easier to just have a schedule down.
Too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just more, you need to have come in read the material, and then it's discussion based. I mean, it's when people ask me, like, oh, is it just a continuation? And I'm like, no, it's a completely different.
Yeah.
A completely different thing because we're doing something in many ways very different, you know?
Yeah.
No grammar.
Yeah.
No grammar in the beginning.
Yeah.
Man, I was so confident in some of my answers, and you were like, oh, no, the other one.
Yeah, grammar last year was hard. And I love having my junior friends who are taking AP Lang now, and I'm, like, watching them, like, it feels like from above, and I'm like,
been there, done that.
I remember all the volleyball players came in that were in your class, and they're like, how do I not know what an adjective is? And I was like, I didn't either. I thought I knew until it became more complicated.
Yeah. There's always more. Always more to learn.
Yeah.
Or when you came in and you spoke Old English, and I go, what did you say? I was like, how did you say that?
Yeah.
Oh, the memories. Landon, you've been really quiet. How was your experience?
I actually, it was probably one of my favorite classes.
Yeah.
I want to be that honest. Like, it was a good class.
Yeah.
And I like the material, like, that's and history stuff. Like, that's really my favorite stuff.
Yeah.
Like, of all time. And now I'm taking, like, college classes and stuff. Like, I'm taking OTC and stuff. And it's not bad. I would say it's not, I wouldn't say it's comparable to I mean, like, it's easier, I think. It's a lot easier. But it's like, it almost feels like it's, like, just, like, there to be there. Yeah. And it's not like, there's a lot of passion in it.
Yeah, and that's too bad, because that's really, I mean, it's really what you want to seek out, I think. You know, at least for me. I just always want to be in the room with the people. Where are the people who are in, right? And loving what they're doing. And that's, if I could give people any advice, like, that's what you seek out. Seek it out, even if it's hard, even if it, you know, you're not 100% nailing it in that moment. I mean, somewhere it's going to be part of your growth that, and I don't know. For me, I think that's seek those things out, find those people, and that's where that's who you want to surround yourself with, you know. People who love it, are passionate, care about you, care about your success. Part of why it feels easy is you did do, you know, you went through whatever you went through last year, you know. And that can't be faked. Like, I think that's the thing I so much want kids to understand is, like, you cannot pretend to have that confidence. It has to come from a place of really grappling with whatever you thought your flaws were, whatever you thought your struggles were, in terms of managing academic content or your work life balance, your sports. You tackle those things, you know, figure it out. So the next time around, you're not afraid. You're not worried. You know it's going to look like a certain thing. You're going to have spots where it's tough, and it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
But you can't fake those things.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do it. You know, another way.
Yeah.
So anyway, I know it's not always popular, but if I didn't care about kids, I wouldn't run the class the way I do.
Yeah.
Because I do want you to not ever be afraid, right?
Yeah.
Like I can go to school wherever I want. I'm gonna major whatever I want. I'm not afraid. You know, I've got those things within me. I've got that capability.
Yeah. And I would say you really have taught us, like, to ask those hard questions. Like, it's okay to challenge who's teaching you, and that's how it should be.
Yeah.
So, like, if I have a question about the way we're reading something and maybe I don't see it the same way you do, it's fine.
Yeah.
And I'm allowed to have that opinion, because I feel like a lot of times teachers try to put you in that box because they want you just to pass the next standard. And you're like, okay, I get the standard, but why is that the standard?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's something that at least I've learned from your class.
Yeah.
And I've been able to, like, teach other kids. I'm like, it's fine to ask those questions.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to be the one kid that's like, wait a minute, back up 2 sentences because I didn't read that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, yes, you're going to get the point. Yes, you're going to get there at some point. But, like...
Well, also, I think you're saying something good here, because if we turn education into, like, checking off standards, then at some point it becomes interrogating your own mind. And that's the part that I'm most interested in, right?
Yeah.
Is just somebody, what do you think? Why do you think it? And then try to back that up, you know, with something, or to recognize your own gaps and questions. What are we doing if not that?
Right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, and this is why I think so many kids are bored.
Yeah.
Because if you're just there to seek out what you think someone else wants, or what you think what the right answer is for someone else, no wonder it's boring.
Right.
I mean, that's not interesting.
Yeah.
It's also not useful
Right.
in the long run. So, I mean, I try to always tell students, is like, look, I'm really just interested in what you think. Stop trying to give me a right answer. Don't lose your voice in this process. Like, I mean, certainly we'll correct things. Like, you can be wrong, of course, but like, you know, that's not the point, especially of the humanities.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole point is to really figure out who you are, who you want to be, what you think, how to think better, I guess, more logically, more, I don't know, more nuanced, more sophisticated thinking. I mean, that's just a lifelong journey.
Yes.
And I think that's exciting. And I think that's the other part I most want to turn kids onto. It's like, no, look, this is exciting scholarship. Scholarship is exciting.
Yes.
If you go at it the right way. And so that's really at the heart, I guess, of my philosophy of why I do things. But, you know, you can't do it if there's not a plan, a pace. And it's also because, think of classes you've been in where everyone is prepared. I mean, the bar just becomes, it's up here, you know, because you're not waiting around for people who don't really know what they're talking about. They didn't do the work. That's such a drag on the whole experience. So that's the other reason I kind of demand that sort of preparation is now we have a real class happening, right? When everybody's engaged. So anyway.
Yeah. I think your class was really, like, one of the first times that I was like, I'm so grateful for my education and where I'm at, and being at Ozark. Because it's not that I was ever ungrateful for my education or what I had, but it was kind of a wake up call. Like, you're in a really good place, and there's a lot of people who don't get this. Like, you need to be so grateful for this and the teachers that you have. Like, I think it was your class and global politics. Those two, I was like, we have it good here. And as many, like, there's always things that could be better, and I
of course
am so open to talking about, how can we improve Ozark? But at the same time, it's because I love it so much, and I love the classes and experiences I get to have here, and the education I get to get here. So
that's a really kind thing to say, and that's for all the teachers that I think, and so share that, because sometimes we don't hear those things very often, ever.
That, and you taught me good books, because now when I read fluff, I'm like, this is boring. I'm about to skip 3 pages.
Right. Your patience for the bad stuff.
And I'm like, that's terrible.
You just set the bar higher.
I read like a cheesy romance at one point. I was like, this is stupid. I can't get through it.
It's got its place, you know, and I'm all for balance. But, you know, but
well,
you do know what you're reading is like, okay, this is junk food.
Well, that's what the summer's for.
Yes, that's right.
And then we get academic during the school year, which is exactly.
Well, that's a big debate in education too. Is like I'm such a dinosaur probably in meetings, but like I'm all for. I think school should be tackling the stuff you wouldn't probably pick up on your own.
Yeah.
And sometimes people really want to push back on that. Like, but this is fun. This is what I enjoy. And I'm like, and that should be there. But when are you ever going to pick up Sophocles or Aristotle or Shakespeare on your own? You're probably not. And furthermore, you're not going to have it where you're discussing with your peers, which is really what literature is all about. You have to have that discussion piece. You're trying to slog through some of those things on your own, and you're looking around like, I need someone to I'm not sure what I read here, you know, that kind of thing. It's very difficult. So I really believe we shouldn't just always do what's already easy.
Yeah. And there's a place for both.
There's a place for both.
And there should be room for both in education. Yeah.
But sometimes there's really a push to not, well, kids don't like it. Kids don't. That might also be the way it's being done or presented, or I don't know. But, make them like it. It's good stuff.
So happy it made us read To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite books now, and I didn't realize how good it was.
Yeah.
It kind of started off slow. I was like, okay. Yeah. And then I was like, wait a minute. Once it gets to the good part, and I'm like...
I know. Yeah. There's a reason it's always at the top of the list for a lot of people.
I read it sophomore year, and then rereading it, it was, very
different experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And I really like Shirley Jackson, though.
Shirley
Shirley
Jackson.
Even though nothing ever ends, and now I don't trust people in books. Like the last one he gave, I thought he was going to die the whole time. Yeah. I was like, it's not going to survive. And then it did, and it's kind of a happy ending.
Yeah.
Well, comparative. But I was like, every time I'm reading it now, I'm like, something's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, Reece, you had a question about books for Miss Ray.
Yeah, it was more about like the banning of books and the importance of literature. Mm-hmm. Where do you think that should be on people? Like, why do people ban books in your opinion? And how do we like keep that from happening?
Mm-hmm. I don't know how you always prevent it from happening. Mm-hmm. Well, in the end, I mean, no one can really probably prevent. They may make it hard, but at least right now, if the book's in print, you can get your hands on it. But I guess, I don't know, it'd be the traditional answer, I suppose, that there's something in it. Well, I mean, this is the power of literature, though, right? To really challenge status quo, challenge your thinking, present a perspective that may run counter to your own. And for whatever reason, I think sometimes people are really frightened of those things. And mostly what they're frightened of is changing their minds. I think in having to confront that cognitive dissonance of, now I have to maybe backpedal a little bit on what I've always thought. And that's, of course, uncomfortable. But gosh, if we're not there, we're in trouble, I think. I mean, I believe, obviously I've given my life to it. So for me, being educated and as a constant process, is just one of the most important things, that we can do. And especially if we're going to have a democracy, then there has to be these freedoms, and free education, and that's not just the cost, that's access. And when those things try to get challenged, I think the best way to do it is just make sure you read them. As soon as someone's telling you not to, read it. There's something in there probably that's worthwhile and valuable. And of course, I'm not a fan of the banning books. Now I understand conversations about appropriateness and that's real. Certainly, some topics belong at probably different developmental periods, but I also think that's a decision that can be made sometimes by the individual, sometimes maybe with parental guidance and whatever, but if the book's not for you, the only censorship I think we need is just to put it back on the shelf. I don't think you need to remove it for others. So I've never quite understood that that thinking, but it usually also doesn't usually work.
That's true.
So that's one hopeful spot I always have, is that in the end, those ideas, you cannot crush ideas in the end. They may get damaged, and it may take a long time, but somewhere, somehow, they will resurface when its time is there. So, no, I'm not for it, and wish people would not take that tack. And the other thing, I mean, let's look at it this way. We were just talking about this in my class yesterday, but when it comes to free speech, I think the thing people often forget is, and this is hard sometimes because it means we have to hear things we don't always like. But that's the other part of that right. It's the speaking, but no one ever talks about the listening. I also have a right to hear what you're saying and either reject or accept.
Yeah.
Right.
And if we block that, then I'm also losing my right to hear.
Yeah.
And because we only think about free speech as the speech, I think, and not the listening. But if I want to read someone's book and reject it, I have that right because they had the right to have the book.
Right.
So, and when we, sometimes we don't like what people are saying, or they're on social media or whatever doing saying repugnant things, right? Maybe even dangerous things. We have to deal with that and decide what we accept or don't as a culture. But if I hear it, I know where they stand and I know what to accept or reject. If we block that.
And what something else I think about, because we had this discussion in global politics a bit, is like, especially on social media, if limiting what people say, because there are horrible things.
Yeah, and dangerous
misinformation.
things.
But who stops that? And what kind of power are we giving that person or those people or whatever?
Yeah.
Because that's also something that can be abused, which is kind of like with the book banning thing.
Yeah.
Like, who's in power and who, like, what does that say?
We see that, like, especially right now. Like I was just talking about Elon Musk. He bought Twitter just to say his own opinion.
Yeah.
And okay.
Yeah.
I mean, participate or don't. It puts a lot of, I think this is the other part, though, of the democratic process, is why we have to protect so much varying voices and that we have different branches of things for a reason, so that there is constantly a checks and balances or somebody out there willing to say, no, that crosses the line and we've determined as a society that's illegal.
Yeah.
Or you are, putting people in danger. So this is what we have said doesn't work within the scope of these rights that we have, right? But that's why the different voices and groups and balance is so important. And that's what has me worried a little bit right now, is that if we reach that place where there's a lack of balance, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, things can happen, and they can take a long time to fix.
Yeah. I think you approached that very well in class, though, because when we read our 3 books, To Kill a Mockingbird, Great Gatsby, and
A Raisin in the
Sun.
Yeah.
Sorry. I completely was like, please.
For your summer reads.
For our summer reads. And we talked about how, especially with To Kill a Mockingbird, there are like problematic things. And we addressed that and we had that conversation. And that's a good way to approach it, is to give students the literature and then to say, well, here's what people say, here's why this can be problematic. What do we think about that? Is it not, how is it still valuable? And those are all good questions to ask. And I think that's a much better way of approaching the those controversies than just outright not addressing it.
Right.
And just pretend it's not there.
Yeah.
Because that's not how life works.
No.
Students will grow up into a world where there will be controversies. They may be the controversy.
Yeah.
How do we address that?
Well, and not all of the questions are bad.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the part, is like sometimes being willing to say, well, where's this person coming from who has a problem with this?
That too.
And maybe not all the questions are bad. And just trying to again, education, right?
Yeah.
You got to get to the knowledge. We were talking in class, I think yesterday with my Lang class, but how quickly a conversation that has 2 sides disintegrates into a clash or name calling as soon as people tap out on what they actually know.
Yeah.
Which is often very quickly.
Yeah.
So like, if you've got sort of your sides of an issue, once the conversation is not based in actual knowledge of each side or subject, it goes very quickly to where people become very quickly entrenched and now it just becomes sort of name calling. And I think that's a big problem right now.
Yes.
We're so quickly ready to entrench, and maybe our knowledge of the issue is really cursory, really surface level.
Yeah.
And there's where the work comes in, right? This is why education is it cannot stop. Like, you have to just keep trying to dig for truth and information, so that, I mean, if you really do want to avoid that polarization and fractured relationships and all kinds of things that just turn to name calling, then I think it's both people saying, well, this is about all I know on this topic.
Yeah.
So I can't really continue, right?
Yeah.
In this debate, because I don't know enough about XYZ.
Yes.
I mean, imagine conversations if they were that, right? If people just said, as soon as they hit the mark where I don't know what I'm talking about, it would stop.
Yes. Yeah.
I think it would be a lot different.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, speaking of which, we did just have an election.
Yes.
And a lot of people are still feeling a lot of emotions about that. How do you think we can talk about the election and how we can individually react without antagonizing one another? Because I think that's something we're seeing everywhere.
Well, it's just the thing I just described, right? Like, so, I mean, it's difficult, especially right now, because feelings are one way or the other, very heightened. You know, either you're elated or you're very sad, you know. And so there's that. So I think anytime you're in a conversation, you have to, first of all, be like, this might not be the best time.
Yeah.
You know, like, I need a week or two. I need, you know, to just get my head around whatever's going to be and go from there. That's always good advice, no matter what, right?
Yes.
Like, just take a moment,
Take a
take a
moment.
beat.
Yeah.
And admit that, like, you know, my emotions are running kind of high now. It might not be the best time to engage in whatever, but and so there's that. And then I don't know if we don't figure out a way to make this work. I mean, then this whole experiment is done.
Yeah.
I mean, it just is over.
Yeah.
So I mean. And I'll be honest with you, that's the part that might most frighten me, is I'm not sure everybody wants a real democracy anymore. And that's the part I'm probably most frightened about.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes when people say, like, oh, well, we shouldn't have that. This should be the last election. This should be, those things are terrifying.
Yeah.
And I don't care who, that just that the whole system is now, we've decided, historically speaking, when people decide democracy is not the way, it just never goes well.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, bad things are going to happen.
Yeah.
So I'm trying not to feel alarmist, but
Yes.
I also don't want to be naive. And so I'm somewhere in the middle right now.
I'm also treading between those two things, where I have days where I feel so full of doom.
Yeah.
And then I have days where I'm like,
no,
well,
we'll figure it out.
Everything will be okay.
Yeah.
And then it's really just back and forth between those two, trying to not feel like the world is going to completely change or end.
Yeah.
And I think I've seen people critique other people for feeling doomful. Is that a word? Doomful?
Maybe not, but fatalistic, maybe.
Fatalistic, sure. That's a good word.
We'll make it a word, though.
Yeah.
Doomful is probably not a bad, should be a word, I guess.
But for feeling that way, like, oh, well, the world isn't going to end. You're being dramatic. Well, it's okay to feel that way. We're still processing in our own time.
Yeah.
And I think it's just let people process, no matter what side they're on. Let people process what's even happened, because every election, it feels like, is a huge one.
Yeah.
Let people process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say for me, I always have hope as long as there's people that are willing to challenge.
Yeah.
There are people that are willing to be like, wait.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's not it. Let's not do that. And I feel like as long as we have these people,
Yeah.
I have a little, like, I still have a little bit of hope, because in America, we still have the freedom, so you're still getting the information. Like, you're still getting the, okay, yes, this might be a good idea, but what if this happens?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so as long as we have those people, for right now at least, I can keep my head above water.
That's right.
But as soon, I feel like, as I see that crashing, I'll and it wouldn't matter who's in power if I see that happening. I'd be like, wait a minute.
No, you're so right.
Like, alarming. Like, because that's why I do love literature, is that you're allowed to have those challenging, and you're allowed to have both sides. So I want to be an attorney, so I can always understand both sides. And you're always doing the research for both sides.
Yeah.
That's why I liked, what's the one last year where you have to do the other side first when you write your essay, and then you come in with your own argument.
The Rogerian.
Yeah,
yes.
I loved that one because it made me it made me make my argument stronger because I had to know what was happening on the other side.
Yeah.
And I feel like as long as we have people that are willing to push that, I think we'll be okay.
And I'll say this to you, as long as we still have groups that their sole purpose is to protect our civil rights.
Yes.
Because I do think that they're going to be busy. You know, making sure that people's civil rights are protected. And then sometimes I don't think people realize the ways that some of these things could change. There was a really good piece on NPR this morning about the Department of Education, which is one of the things that Trump says he will abolish. The Department of Education. I don't think people realize the Department of Education is responsible for ensuring if you have a 504, if you have a any kind of special education need, that legally those things are being followed.
Right.
I mean, they are there solely as a federal entity to mostly protect students' civil rights. And I don't think people quite. I think they hear bureaucracy, they hear waste, and they're like, it's all a big bunch of. And they're probably not realizing at times the very good things that some of these departments do. Now, I'm not saying they're all perfect by any means, but like, I'm not sure. Again, knowledge. Like, do you really know what they do? Because even I don't know all the things that Department of Education is technically responsible for. I know they fill gaps in terms of funding for very poor school districts. Again, I'm not sure everyone understands, like, so what would that look like if we do not have some of these departments? Of course, that one's of interest to me, but really should be to everybody. But anyway, and there again, I don't always have all the knowledge to make a good call, and because even I wasn't sure, I've started really looking like, what would it mean to abolish the Department of Education?
Well, that's not
there's
really
a lot
been a question.
No, I haven't had to worry about it. So, at any rate, so, again, puts the onus on us to kind of, we should know what we're going, what might happen. And what that might actually look like from the day to day. The other one I heard that this is very interesting. So RFK is going to be, what is he going to be? Secretary of, I don't know what. Something. Anyway, so people's food stamps or they can't buy soda. I wonder how that's going to go over. And I thought, I wonder if people realize, like, you're not going to be able to go buy soda. Because he's wanting to tackle chronic health, which is mostly caused by diet. So not that he's wrong, but I don't think people are gonna like it.
They're gonna like that one very much.
Well, they're trying to get rid of all these like things, like these government programs that are trying to fix these things. I was like the CDC and whatever.
Oh my gosh, right? Like, I don't know if we know, like, the things we probably take for granted that are happening. Yesterday I heard maybe cutting 75,000 federal jobs. It's like they said 50% to 75%. Stuff's going to go missing, go wrong, right? Like, I mean, as much as there's the bureaucracy, which we all know about, all you got to do is go try to get a driver's license and, but yikes. I don't know. That's a lot. The big sweeping things like that, I worry, you might be cutting something you actually need and just didn't realize it was always there.
So part of your life and you don't really think about it because why would you? So anyway, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. Hopefully we can
just keep it going, keep democracy going. I mean, I guess that's where I'm kind of at. If we don't figure out how to, there has to be balance. There has to be compromise, and without, then it's not democratic anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know. That makes me worry.
Yeah.
But like you said, you got to look at the people that are always side by side, right? Doing the good things, and that's true. And there's probably more of them than we ever acknowledge on a day-to-day basis, and that's important. So it's a great way to look at it.
Yeah. Something I was going to say earlier when we were talking about how to have these conversations is, and I think what we learned last year with the Rogerian argument really changed the way I think about addressing these conversations with people who may have different opinions than me on really like anything.
Yeah.
Is I always, I try to live by arguing to understand and not to win.
Yeah.
Because if we argue to win, then we end up going in circles. Yeah. And that gets tiring, and I'm tired of that. That's a big thing where I try to have conversations with people, mostly friends, and I try to avoid the conversation going in a loop, and that's been successful. I've had some conversations about things we disagree on, and we end on a point where we're like, well, we understand each other better. And are we going on thinking, having our still same opinions? Yes, but we can understand each other. And if we can understand each other, then we can get closer.
That's right.
To, then it's more going like this instead of in a circle. Yes. If that makes sense.
Yes. Well, when we try to win, we will hurt.
Yeah, and that's in anything.
Harm.
Relationships, I think I certainly try to live by that.
Yeah. It's hard, but that's what civil discourse means.
Yes.
It's trying to figure out a way to live with each other, even though we are different.
Yeah.
And so here's your options, right, as a country. Either you abolish the difference, and you make everyone follow
the same
thing. Same, and that only comes about in some kind of forceful way, because it runs counter to everything usually people want and what we are, right? Or you figure out a way to let freedom ring, and get along. I mean, that's really it. That's your choice.
And when I was younger, so going into school, I did not know that people don't have parents and family members that are going to challenge what you're thinking. Because I grew up, my cousin's really smart, always. So she's always asked questions. And so I've always had to be the one that gets the questions, receiving them always. It's always been my job. But when we would disagree, my grandmother, she's very, very educated. Love her to death. But she's always challenged, being like, why?
Why do you think that?
And so going into kindergarten and first grade, first of all, didn't realize teachers don't always like being asked why and things.
That's too bad.
When you're itty bitty and they're like, excuse me. And I got in trouble a few times. But I also didn't realize people weren't used to that. Even if I agree with you, being like, but why do you think that way? Because I know I think because of this, and they're like, what? Because very many of times when I was little, teachers being like,
that's too bad.
It is too bad, but I feel like if more people had that mindset and going in, even when you're little, even if you I know you're right. You know what, you're right. The sky's blue. But why?
Why is it? That one always something about refracting light.
Some science question. Something about
stuff I should know and just let be.
There's a lot of things I'm like, I feel like I should just know that, but I don't, so I'm just gonna be like,
will it change? No. So I'm gonna let that be.
Or how the tide, something about the tide effect, the moon affects the tide or something, and I'm gonna be like, is that actually true?
There's a great the character Sherlock Holmes, right? And so Watson asked him something, and you don't know this about space. It's like, why would I care about that? It's not in my immediate so I don't know. Sometimes I'm guilty of that.
Or someone asked me how many moons some planet had, and I go, I don't know. I know we have
I'm glad
one.
you know that, and I think it's fascinating, but I don't spend my time there. It's true. It's true.
I'm like, we have one. I can tell you that much.
Shall we segue into film?
Sure.
Yeah? So what do you love about movies?
Oh gosh, just the story. It's another form of storytelling, and but it's got all the things. The visual, the music, the lighting, the costuming, the sets, the casting. It is wonderful.
Yeah,
I love
it's fun.
Love movies. Yeah.
Do you sit down to watch the Oscars every year?
No.
Oh,
I used to sometimes. Yeah. When I was younger, but not anymore so much. Although I'll go back and watch the clips now.
Yeah.
We didn't used to be able to do that. So now you can just,
watch.
Short Will Smith slapped Chris Rock. Right?
I gotta go back.
Yeah. What is wrong with this guy? Yeah. So anyway, no, I'm like everybody else. I probably just watch the speeches I'm interested in or awards I'm interested in sometimes.
My family watches it every year.
Yeah.
Well, I make them because they used to make me when I was younger, and I understand. I understand the issues with the Oscars. Yeah. I'm still really I'm holding on to it for dear life. Good. Because I love it and it's always so inspiring. And then by the end, I'm like, do I want to be a famous actress? And it's no,
or just somewhere in there. Something.
But.
No, I love film. I just think it's one more great. And screenplays, writing, the writing. I'm fascinated by people who can see that on the page and have a vision. And I find that very interesting. Yeah.
Is there a world where maybe you taught film?
Yeah, but not in the technical sense.
Yeah. In the theoretical sense.
Yeah. Well, it was called fiction to film. So it was only books that had been turned into film.
Oh, so you did teach this?
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
Great.
And so what our goal was, we were more interested in how you arrive sort of at the screenplay. So we would pick a book that had been made into a film. We would read the book. And then before we watched the film, we would break the book into a 3-act structure. And we would put storyboards, sort of like what should stay. Are there characters who can be combined or cut? What storyline needs to be where, and so we would try to sort of figure out what that book should look like in film. Yeah. And that process is fascinating.
Cool.
That'd be an awesome class.
Yeah, it was
wish
a great
I could
class.
take that.
That was at the private school I taught at.
Oh, yeah.
And so anyway, that was really a great, fun class to do. And especially if the kids had not read the book nor seen the film, then, we would, and then when we watched it, we could then go back and say, well, this choice surprised me. Yeah. I don't really like this particular choice, or I thought this was great. This was even better than I thought. And that was how we went at it, was like moving from one type of storytelling to another.
Yeah.
And that was what that class was all about. So for me, it's less like I'm not good at like the, naming camera angles.
Me too.
I mean, we did sort of surface in terms of that stuff, but the storytelling component.
Yes.
I felt like
it's very, very interesting.
There I feel like I can jump into that conversation, like what this might look like. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that I love talking about film. My dad is a film bro.
Yeah.
All the way. He actually has some short films.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
And he won awards for them at the Houston Film Festival when we lived there.
That's amazing.
So, for a while I thought I was going to go down that path. Yeah. But again, I'm not a very technical person. You probably saw as we were setting up. I'm like, Landon, can you help me? I don't understand I'm just not a big technology person.
Yeah.
So I feel like you have to be for that.
Right.
But I love the storytelling aspect, which is why I've kind of like started like plays.
Yeah.
I love writing. Yeah. I love writing plays, and it's something I'm so familiar with. Yeah. Like I know exactly how to like make a picture on a set. Yeah. On a stage. Yeah. Whereas, and I've written a short film before. Yeah. And I'm like, the dialogue and like the plot is there, but I don't know what I'm doing with like the camera and the technical part. Yeah. Like I don't.
But that's why it's such a collaborative process. Yeah, exactly. So like I wouldn't let that keep you from. And maybe if you were to have a director or somebody take your script and like that's what it's all about. That's what it's right. About. I mean, that's where it becomes. Here's my expertise, what's yours, and that's the beauty, I think, of a film too. I love that it's so collaborative. It's so collaborative.
It takes so many people, an incomprehensible amount of people.
The credits, like really just not even reading the names, but just how many
Yeah.
people, and what an amazing, like, that's so where, again, like, I wish everyone could experience, like, well, I feel this way sometimes in our classes when we're really on, like, with discussion. It is the most wonderful, thrilling, invigorating environment, right? Because, like, everybody's pitching in. Like, this is just such a collaborative thing. And it's such a drag when there's, like... people that aren't, you know, because it just pulling away from the whole spirit of the thing. But how fun to be, and I think sports are like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like when it's clicking, everybody's doing their piece. There is no substitute to that. Because like for all your individual efforts, you will never get that feeling. Of just like when all the pistons are firing and you're like, man, we are a force right now, right? Whether it's, I think, something creative or something athletic, it's such a great experience to be in a room with like brains and skills and talents flying around and everybody starts.
Yes.
And sometimes it's contentious, but it's getting to, you know, a great final thing. So
I get that feeling with improv. Because it's so beautiful, like just actors helping each other out.
Oh, I'm totally floored by that. Well, I don't know if I could do it.
I'm not amazing at it, but it's so fun.
But still, what an exciting thing.
Yeah, it's that same sort of thrill.
Improv. I think it's so funny. My brother's really good at it. You never met my brother. He's cute. He looks just like me, just 6'3" and like 280 pounds. Big guy. But he's so good at it, and he's hilarious. Like but he's a gift. He's gifted smart. Like.
Quick.
Yes. I remember like, so I'll be saying something and he'll make a joke. It takes me a second. I'm like, wait a minute. That was me. And he'll just sit there and smile.
My biggest thing with improv is I break so easily because I just can't help but laugh. But it's so fun. What are some of your favorite movies to watch?
And even if you can't find a favorite, what's one that you want people, like, if you could say, I want you to watch this movie because of this meaning.
I wish more kids would go back and watch some of the old stuff. Like, I'm always very sad when I mention movies and kids just stare at me. Like, I'm like, you know, like I have comfort movies sometimes. Like last night I put on It's a Wonderful Life, which I'll watch any time of year, but any movie by Frank Capra is incredible. I like that whole, all his themes are right up my alley, and you know, You Can't Take It With You, and they're just all so good. And if I really want to watch a great actress, I'll go back and watch anything with Irene Dunn. So she's 30s, 40s. But people are missing out because, like, these actors, there were some really, she's so funny and so quick, and I just think she's amazing. So anything with her in it. And then I'll watch, I like some of them from the 50s and 60s. You have to always know, like, well, that's super sexist or, you know, whatever. That's the troublesome thing, right, is that you have, of course, there's problematic parts sometimes with films, but anyway, see them same with books, see them for what they are. But I really, there's so many good old movies. In Decades class, we just talked about Casablanca, and no one has seen it. There's not one person in the class.
A League of Their Own. How has no one seen that one?
No Crying in Baseball.
Or Girls, Field, Grass. Don't eat it. I love that movie. I know. And when no one raised their hand, I was like, no one. Like, that one's recent-ish. Like, it's not too old.
So I'm just always a little disappointed. Like, I mean, when we get to the 70s, I'll be like, The Godfather, you know, I'll do some line or something, and every kid's just like, you know, blank. And I'm like, how can you be in this country and not have seen some of these movies? But I'm a movie watcher, so
my thing is, how do you find the time?
This is what you do when you're late at night and folding laundry, you're doing those. I don't ever usually just sit and watch unless it's something new. I had to really concentrate on if you want a couple new ones that I think are really like no one's talking about that I thought were interesting, but the movie with Saoirse Ronan.
Saoirse Ronan. Yeah.
Saoirse Ronan. Called Foe.
Yeah, you were talking about that.
One. That one needs to be watched. It's a grind at the beginning, but it's a pun.
I will go. I will go try to watch it sometime.
It's really FAUX, and so that one's important. I think.
Yeah,
that's a good one. But also I'm really getting into some of these series. I just watched. It's probably the best satire I've seen in a while. Regime. With Kate Winslet, anything with her.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
She's fantastic.
I love Kate Winslet.
Anything
Have
with
you
her.
Seen?
That is just a really good satire.
Am I thinking? Oh, I get some of the Kates mixed up. I'm thinking there's Kate Winslet and then there's Kate Blanchett.
Oh, anything with her.
Have you seen Tar?
No, I haven't yet.
I love that. That was
the composer.
Yes,
the composer.
That was the year. Was that 2023 or 2022? That was the year I was able to catch up with a lot of the Oscars movies because I don't really get the chance.
She's phenomenal,
but she's so good.
Emma Thompson.
Yeah.
Meryl Streep. I'll watch anything with her.
Meryl Streep. She's
Tom Hanks.
The best.
Who doesn't love Tom Hanks? Still
love Tom Hanks. Yes,
because he's fantastic.
Yeah.
What a national treasure.
Truly is.
That guy. But anyway, no, there's so many that I really like.
Yeah.
I love movies. My mom loves movies. Her favorite is Pretty Woman.
Oh yeah.
She puts on at least once every 2 weeks.
Classic comfort film.
Yeah, she'll watch Good Clothes.
Even though it's such a ridiculous premise, but you have to let all that go.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're just like, well,
just appreciate the lines, the performances, and some good stuff. Yeah.
My favorite right now is The Wind Rises, which is a Studio Ghibli film.
Oh.
And it's not one of the very popular ones. It came out in like 2014.
Okay.
I think it's very, very underrated.
The Wind Rises.
The Wind Rises. It's so good. It's pre-World War II in Japan.
Oh.
And it's about an aeronautical engineer.
Oh, nice.
And it is just so wonderful.
Yeah.
It's kind of centered around a poem, which is my sort of thing. All of my things are usually like there's a poem in there.
Yeah.
So I have watched it about 7 times this year.
Awesome.
I wrote an essay on it for film last semester.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah.
I love it.
Film is important.
My comfort movie is The Princess and the Frog, and it will forever be
that
The
one
Princess
is
and the
so
Frog.
good.
I will forever cry when Ray dies at the end. He gets squished. I love that movie, and nobody can convince me otherwise.
The music in that is phenomenal. The colors.
Yeah.
It's a really, really good movie.
I don't know if I've seen it.
You've
really
never seen The Princess and the Frog?
If I have, it's been
a long
too
time.
long, and I don't remember.
It's great. Honestly,
great
it's
animated,
great.
right?
Yeah.
Animated.
I just love animation. I think unless my dad is showing me something, I tend to lean towards
it's
animation.
Fantastic. It's so clever.
Yeah,
So
I love
impressive.
it.
It's impressive and
so
clever.
great. Mm-hmm.
I just picked up a book about the philosophical truths of fairy tales, and I think it had a chapter. I'm not there yet on the turning into things like frogs.
Yeah.
And whatever that means to us as people,
Man,
or some kind of hidden thing. But anyway, I'm excited to
if you
see
go
what
back
it says.
and watch animations, that one, and then The Hunchback of Notre Dame?
Notre Dame.
Yeah.
I actually haven't seen that one.
First of all,
It's been a long
rewatch
time.
it.
Yeah. Disturbing.
Yeah.
Doesn't age well.
No.
Oh, you guys watched it in decades?
No, I watched it on my own.
Oh,
and I was like, I'll watch this one. I know it's cute. And I was like,
is it disturbing?
That is not a kid's movie. Have you seen it recently?
Not recently, but maybe a year ago or something.
Sometimes things don't age well, and you go back and you think, so that's assault.
Oh,
now we
100%.
call that like all 80s, anything by John Hughes.
Yeah.
You go back and you think, so I really liked, 16 Candles, and then you watch again, and your modern sensibilities go, so that's not good.
Yeah, I just thought, it was
that's not good, and that's not good, and that didn't age well.
Yeah, or like when you so it's a Disney movie, so I was thinking like, you know what, we'll have some problems. I mean, it is a whole point of like, you are beautiful the way you are, but I was like,
what happens?
There's a whole song about how it's about Catholic Church taking over and being in charge and how that can be bad. Mm-hmm. But he has a whole song like, Lord, please forgive me for my sins, but if this gypsy, he tries to get rid of all the gypsies, because she's so beautiful. If she doesn't want me back, I'm either going to force her hand or rape her, or I'm going to burn her at the stake.
Well.
And I said...
Wait, does it say that in the song?
Basically. It's basically...
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
He sings it in front of fire, and the fire is rising, and I was like...
Now, so he's a villain.
Is he painted? It's the villain. It's the villain. It's the priest.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
but that's what they did.
I know that is, but I was like, Disney, wow.
Yeah.
Which I mean,
like
they
the
were.
night dude.
I'm just surprised that even
he's
passed with Disney.
He's
a part of the church.
History.
Unfortunately.
He's the head priest, and it's about Quasimodo. He has a hunchback, but the whole he's the reason why Quasimodo's in the church is because his mom, I think, was a gypsy and was trying to run away, and the priest caught her and killed her with the baby in her arms, and he was going to kill the baby, but the good priest comes out and is like, if you do that, God's watching. And then all the statues turn and look at him, and he's like, and so he's like, fine, but he has to stay in the church, because if you're in the church, you can claim sanctuary,
right,
and no one can touch you anyway.
What
was people watch that?
I think that would be more problematic if that song was being painted, like being romanticized, and like they did end up together, but they don't, right?
No,
because he's the villain.
I don't know. I think he ends up dying because he tries to kill Quasimodo and the girl and the good knight, and then he ends up taking a wrong step and slipping off the rocks into the fire, and then he ends up being the one that burns, which is ironic, but But well, it's been, I think we should probably wrap up.
Okay.
But thank you so much for coming.
Yes, thank you.
This was just wonderful. Of course, I love you all, so it was easy to speak with you.
We love you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your ideas.
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah. Anytime, guys. Good luck with your project. I think
Thank
this
you.
is amazing.
Yes.
So,
Thank you.
All right.
And we will see you next podcast.
Yeah. All right.
We're going to